We got to talk bagels, man. New York bagels? Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
So if you would share with the audience the origin of the company.
Yeah. If you have ever visited New York or you've lived in New York and you have a New York bagel, you know that it's absolutely fantastic. But one of the key components of that bagel, besides all the wonderful ingredients, is the effect that New York water has on the bagel. So the idea of the company is we wanted to be able to take New York bagels out to other parts of the country. But how do you do that without having that water supply? So originally we looked at shipping water over state lines in tankers. Well, guess what, Frank? That's very expensive. And actually you can't take water over a state line. So we actually worked with some experts and created a water system. And we actually put a water system in our restaurants that filters the water and purifies it to bottled water quality.
Okay.
And then, it's our secret sauce, we then inject minerals back into it that replicate New York water, and we use that to make our dough. We also use it to kettle our bagels with. So a real New York bagel is kettled. We put malt and water in there, and we kettle the bagel so that it puts a nice crunchy outside on it, and it puts a nice shine on the bagel, and it still protects that chew. You want that chew in a great New York bagel.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's right.
My New York accent is going to come out like big time during this
I like
episode.
it. Maybe mine comes out too.
Very, very cool. So obviously what makes Brooklyn Water Bagel unique is, of course, the water purification process. I'd love to hear how you got involved. I understand you've been with the company now for 4 years as a CEO?
Yeah, I've been with the company for 4 years. Prior to that, I was consulting, and they asked me to get involved to take a look at the business. And I was engaged with the company for a couple of years and really enjoyed that. And was working with the board. And then around the time of the pandemic, perfect time.
Of course.
They reached out and asked me to get involved as CEO of the company, and I got involved at that point.
What a hell of a time to start franchising, right?
Absolutely. It was wonderful being inside those restaurants in the middle of the pandemic, but it actually was a great experience. Taught me a lot.
Yeah, well, certainly a great testament to having to prove your leadership skills and communication with the franchise owners and making sure that everybody's rallying together and getting behind it, because we all know that whether it's a pandemic or a recession, there's always going to be some sort of crisis looming in the future, and it makes us stronger, the survival of the fittest, so to speak, in franchising.
No question, and I think that was probably one of the reasons I fell in love with Brooklyn Water Bagel, because I was so impressed when I came in the pandemic, and it was so challenging. We had so many team members, in the early days when people were concerned about what does this disease do? Am I going to get sick? Am I going to get real sick and end up in the hospital or worse? That loved the concept, loved the guests, loved the brand so much that they came in and wanted to be a part of it and worked hard. And some of those folks could have stayed at home and participated in government-funded programs and so forth. Instead, they came in and gave their all to the business. And it was just an amazing thing to watch. It was an amazing thing to be a part of. Wow. And I love that. And that's the culture of Brooklyn Water Bagel. And that's what I think has positioned us for the growth that we're about to go through right now.
Sweet. Well, talking about the numbers here for a moment, I understand you have 4 company-owned locations plus 11 franchises that are open. But we got quite a bit in development. Even though everything right now is in Florida, you got 20 in development plus another 6 that are probably going to be open around the time that this podcast airs.
Right. We're opening up in the next 60 to 90 days. We're excited about it.
That is fantastic. Why Florida? How did Florida become the first state?
I think Florida was there because originally, there was a lot of New York retirees that were down here, and we thought that would be interesting because they already knew and understood the bagel. I think over time that's changed. People have traveled so much and they've had those experiences and they know the bagel more, and that's why we're preparing to expand out to some other parts of the country like the Midwest and the Southwest and Southeast right now.
Okay. One of the questions I get so often from fellow franchisors, founders or CEOs that are trying to expand their business early on is where to find franchisees. Mm-hmm. And, there's 4,000 franchise brands that are out there. So it's a really crowded space. Where have you guys found your franchisees? What's been the source?
Obviously through some of the marketing that we're doing, through, having conversations like we are today, Frank. Also networking out there and going to events and talking to some existing franchisees of other brands where we think our brand complements them.
Okay.
So for example, obviously we're a breakfast concept. We're open from a breakfast and lunch concept. We're open from 6 a.m. until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Let's say you're a franchisee for a pizza company that doesn't have an exclusive and you are selling pizzas at night. You might find us an interesting choice out there because we balance out what you're doing at being, more of a morning and afternoon concept. So we've had conversations with people like that have had success in those areas and gotten them excited about what we do at Brooklyn.
That's great. And I would imagine there are people that once they taste the bagel that they want to open a location.
Definitely.
All the time.
Absolutely. So guests that come in and people that come in and try it has also been another big avenue where we've gotten folks interested in franchising with us.
So for those that are interested in opening a Brooklyn Water Bagel, one of the things I think we should point out is that you're only looking for multi-unit franchise operators, correct?
Correct. And we're looking for operators that have operating experience. They're well capitalized and they have operating experience out there. And sometimes you have folks that come in and say, boy, wouldn't it be a lot of fun to be involved? And I appreciate that. But I really think to be successful in a franchise, and it's a two-way street,
sure,
you want to make sure that somebody knows what they're getting themselves into, has had some of that restaurant experience in their past so that they can be successful.
I love that. What I love is that you have the courage to decide this is only going to be a multi-unit franchise opportunity. You're going to stick to your guns with as a strategy, because a lot of founders or CEOs, they're at a standpoint where they just want to expand. They just want to sell a franchise, right? And they want to start getting numbers, but you know exactly who you want. And certainly if you're going to go into the multi-unit arena, you're going to get a much more sophisticated franchise owner than somebody that just wants to open one single unit for the most part.
Yeah, I don't know if they're more sophisticated but certainly by doing it, it also allows us to work with a smaller number of franchisees and be able to give them quality support and be able to have quality marketing relationships and quality development relationships and so forth. In my past, I have spent time with organizations that really like the single unit franchisee, and that's great for them and wonderful, but we just didn't think that was the match for us.
That's fair enough. What about ensuring consistency? Because this is such a unique taste, and we want to make sure that somebody can go to a Brooklyn Water Bagel in Delray and get the same experience in Wesley Chapel. How do we, aside from the water, how do we make sure that the entire operation is consistent from location to location?
I mean, that is a challenge, I think, for all of us in the industry, right?
Sure.
So most of it starts with training and really, making sure that people understand what we stand for. But it's constant and consistent follow-up and checking it out and making sure that people are staying on top of the experience that we expect out there.
Okay. What does training and support look like for you guys?
We have training stores like other concepts do. We typically, if we bring in a manager, we train them for 2 months before they are introduced to a unit.
2 months?
Yes, to make sure they really understand everything that's going on in the restaurant, what our expectations are from a guest service perspective, what our standards are for our product and our execution, and then also understanding the business aspects of it. I think that's important too. If you come to work for Brooklyn Water Bagel, we want to help you be a great restaurateur, but we also want to help make you a great business person. And if you decide to do something else in your future, which hopefully not, hopefully you stay with us, but if you decide to do something else, we want you walking away and say, you know what? I really learned how to run a business and understand a business when I was with Brooklyn Water Bagel.
Sure. Is there a challenge that your franchisees face that's unique to other brands, and how do you help get them through it through training and support?
I don't think so. I think we have some unique benefits.
Okay.
And one of the unique benefits that we get, and when you mention uniqueness, this is why it jumped into my mind. Because our restaurants are open from 6 a.m. till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're one of the very few restaurant concepts that I could think of that you could say to a manager, hey, you can be home for dinner with your family every night of the week. And you can. You can drop your kids off at school and you can get to see them, play the soccer game or the dance recital or whatever it may be, and then be home with your family. So we have a nice work-life balance that's built into our business that's really rewarding. And it's a great, as CEO, it's great for me. And even for franchisees to be able to say, hey, I can manage the business at that point and I can have more of a well-rounded life. That's great. I can be involved in my community. I can do other things besides just work all the time. Is great.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.